Everyone, we are finally revisiting the High Republic. Let's dive into it.
As you hear Andrew's ice.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
My mother and father-in-law got me a Stormtrooper helmet decanter and then two Stormtrooper helmet shot. They're not shot glasses, but like they're bigger. It's like a little bit bigger than an espresso mug. It's weird. It's a weird size.
He always drinks coffee this late.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Empire Radio Podcast. I'm Andrew.
I'm Jeremiah.
I'm Drew.
And yeah, we're revisiting Star Wars, the High Republic. It's been, like 2 months, 3 months since this book has been out.
It was June, mid-June, I think,
2
or
months.
beginning of June.
2 months, almost
take.
3.
We were supposed to do it last week, but they had to release that Visions trailer, and so
The week before, and then everything just...
Yeah, we're somewhat a week behind, I guess. In all technicality, we're fine with it, but yeah.
Hopefully you are too. And if you're listening, thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you for listening. So yeah, we're gonna revisit the High Republic. The three of us have read the book. I'm gonna go ahead and apologize because I read the book, and this is not a flex.
Yes,
so I don't want to hear
Here comes
weird flex. I read the book right after it came out. Like I got it on
Weird
the day it
flex.
came out. Okay. I finished the book very quickly, within a matter of about 2 weeks, and then it's been a while. It's been a while since I finished this book.
Did you do a refresher of anything?
I have
Okay, good.
the Wikipedia page that has breakdowns of all of the chapters. It's like disgustingly long.
Like all 70-some chapters? Or did it like break it up into like chapters like 1 through 10? Or
Because some of the chapters are like literally a page and a half. Not even.
No, it's actually, I don't even think this is the whole book, but it's got a pretty detailed breakdown. It definitely covers the first 17 chapters. So,
Like, if you're listening, it is so hard to break down a book that you've read over the course of 2, almost 3 months. Because
it is.
unlike a movie, like, you watch it once right away, you kind of memorize it, you can maybe go back and watch it again, or an episode, watch it more than once. But with a book,
yeah,
you're not going to read that more than once, and if you do, that's the weirdest flex of all time. 2...
Wait, I read Star Wars books more than once.
No, I do too, but not like before you break it down.
Oh, no.
Like you weren't gonna
definitely
read
not.
this twice before, and then life is crazy, so it's like it's so hard to remember everything. So, yeah.
But anyways, we're back. We're doing this, and so,
Bear with us.
Yeah, bear with us. I don't know if this is going to be the most detailed scene by scene or if it's going to be kind of a free for all discussion. I assume that we're not going to jump around it too much.
Hopefully not.
But if we forget little details here and there, there's a lot going on in this book, and there are a lot of characters that have.
It's like Game of Thrones.
They have like semi. So there's more than not that have like legitimately developed plot lines, especially towards the end of the book when ish hits the fan. So that's what we're doing tonight. And then we have a whopping 2 voicemails.
And one of them we got today, or 2 of them did we get today?
No, one of them we got like at the time of recording this like an hour and a half ago.
Yeah.
Give or take. So, all right, well, let's dive into it, shall we? So, book number 2, The Rising Storm by Cavan Scott. Released on June 29th, 2021. So not the beginning of June, the end of June.
Okay, so it's been like
What?
June 29th.
That's weird. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because it took me like
because
2 weeks after it came out for me to like actually get a copy of it.
yeah.
And I gave myself 4 weeks after that to say, hey, I got the date of the 24th. That was 4 weeks.
Yeah, we're at the end of August.
no, but we only took us 2 months to review this. That's what
Yeah.
Jeremiah's saying.
So, because I remember I got it that day, and then I had a business trip that I drove to Nashville for on the 13th of July. And I finished it using the audiobook during that drive. So it took me about 15 days, give or take, to read it. So yeah, released on June 29th. And this takes place some months after the events of the first book. So there has been a little bit of a time jump, but it's not like 2 to 5 to 10 years. It's like 6 months or something, just a hop, skip, and a
Jump
away. Yeah. So let's start, guys. What did we think? What did we think of this? Jeremiah, you go first.
Oh, no. I was hoping to go last.
Okay, Drew, you go first.
What? Why?
Because Jeremiah wanted to go last.
Well,
It's
I guess
probably
I'll go
the
first.
freshest in Jeremiah's mind.
I finished it a week and a half ago. Like the Sunday before we were supposed to.
It was 8 months, by the way. David confirmed 8 months.
So
the second book.
Oh,
So okay, well, first of all, so since I was late to this show, like getting the book, because Target, sold the first book, but they didn't want to sell the second book in stores, so I had to order off Amazon. It was like sold
so
out or
weird
something.
because me and Andrew both bought us in store, but
yeah,
At Target.
tomato,
it doesn't
tomato.
matter. It says right on the website is not sold in stores, and I never saw any in the store. But anyway, well, I forgot what I was gonna say.
You said
but-
since you were late to the party.
Oh, so I got some on Discord. I got like semi spoiled, but like it wasn't stuff like I wasn't expecting, because like we get the vision at the end of the first book where
Correct.
we know something terrible is gonna happen, and so like I've heard like on Discord people kind of or whatever said that like crap hits the fan at some point, and then someone described it as like a 9/11 event,
Yeah, it was David.
and
Ya boy.
and then like Andrew posted like the book title of the third book that like when it was announced, and like
which is
something star or falling star or something, but like people started commenting on that, and I read stuff, and like I quick got out of it because like people were talking about how
The fallen star.
how that like applied to like what they thought that was going to happen in that book, and so like I didn't know if I got spoiled or not, but
were you in the book chat in the Discord?
huh?
Were you in the book chat?
No, this was in the official announcements where Andrew posted that.
Oh.
Yeah, I
And
just
so-
posted the book title.
If you're listening, you haven't joined the Discord. 1, join the Discord. 2, there is sections. So the general, if you don't want to be spoiled on certain things, that's why I was wondering if it was in general. I'm like, all right, someone done messed up.
It was in the official announcements, and people started discussing.
Because
but-
oh wait, people started to spoil the second book in official.
well, I didn't know
announcements?
because they started saying their theories and stuff about what that meant for the title. So like, I
Come
didn't
on,
know.
y'all.
I didn't know if what I saw was relevant or not. So I tried to like not think about it or forget whatever. But
Yeah.
so like I knew something crap was gonna hit the fan. I just didn't know how it was gonna play out or when. And so reading the book, because that doesn't happen until like halfway through the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I thought the first half was really slow and boring. Like it was hard. It was hard to get through that because it
Yep.
was jumping all over the place. I'm like, and it's just like talking about every single exhibit at the fair,
Yep.
and all these characters and nothing's happening and all that stuff. I'm like, what's going on? And then crap hits the fan, and it's like I would have rather have seen it in live action than read it, because it's like it's describing all this crazy stuff, but it's like
It's hard to process that.
It's hard to like see what all these things, because it's like these exhibits that are like
Mm-hmm.
collapsing, and you can't really have to like remember what the exhibit was described as. Like
It was hard to follow.
like 200 pages earlier. Like I don't know. It was just hard for me to like really immerse myself. Like I enjoyed the attack on Valo, enjoyed it as
no.
But, like-
I understand what you mean.
like I thought it was like an interesting thing, like
Concept.
how like all the Jedi were kind of that were there were all spread out trying to do their own thing and whatnot. But like the story was not what I expected it to be, because I thought it was going to be more of like the two sides of the chess game between the Nile and
Yeah.
the Jedi and / Republic. So I thought there was going to be like this back and forth of them trying to like do their part of the conflict. And I thought there was going to be a ton of stuff about Loden Greatstorm. I thought that was going to be a huge plot line of him trying to survive.
I mean,
and whatnot. And you get like one chapter at the beginning and then what happens at the end. Like there's
Yeah,
almost
that's fair.
nothing in the book about him. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of sucks, because like he was like one of my favorite characters from the first book, and they don't give any much about him until the end.
yeah.
Spoilers.
And like with the whole Elzar thing, like I was excited for what he was gonna do, and there wasn't a lot that he did like in the whole book. Like most of it was on Stellan, and like Elzar was just weird this whole book. Like he was just like, I don't even know, he was just weird. And
That's fair.
and then what was the rogue Jedi chick's name? I forget.
Starts with a T.
Tyson?
Not Tyson.
Tyrick?
No, hold on.
Tyrick or something?
Now I'm
Ty?
looking
Or maybe it was just
through.
Ty Yorick.
Ty Yorick. There
Ty.
it is.
I thought like there was gonna be so much more about her.
I think there is going to
'Cause, like,
be.
you look at the cover on the book, you have her, you have Belle, and you have
Well, depending
Stellan,
on
right?
what color you got or cover you got.
Yeah.
like just the basic one. And so like I thought there was gonna be like them teaming up to like do all this stuff and go rescue Loden and stuff, and it never happened. And so like there's some really good things in this book, but like it was also really boring at times. And I think I like the first book better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, going off that, I'm not gonna be a Debbie Downer, but this is like when this book came out and people were reading it and talking about it, they're like, this is the best Star Wars book yet. I disagree. I thought most of it was really slow, also really hard to keep the characters separated because they just talked about so many different names and characters. And the way these books have been, or they kind of jump around from different characters throughout the book. And so like one chapter is this character, the next one's that. And for me, it was kind of hard. Like now I'm good. Like now I know these characters enough where next book it'll probably be easier. But like
Yeah.
as like a reader, like going into this, I'm like, wait, who is that again? Like I don't remember that. And when the books are 8 months apart, it's hard to remember characters too that you haven't visually seen before. And a lot of Star Wars books, like you know these characters because you visually have seen them in media outside of these books. You have an idea, or like my favorite Star Wars book, The Lost Star. It ties in so
Wait,
much.
that's your favorite book?
Yes.
Oh, you've never said that on
Oh,
this
okay.
podcast
Well,
before.
You've never mentioned
if
Lost
you guys
Stars
didn't
before.
know, The Lost Star is the best Star Wars book. Anyways, canon Star Wars book. I should say that because I actually really like other non-canon Star Wars books.
Hey.
But they're not my favorites. Lost Star is like my favorite book. But that book talks about stories that we know. It ties in other stories that you remember from the media, like it's from 4 to 6. So I like there's parts of that book, right, in the Lost Star that I'm like, oh yeah, that's this. But this is completely different universe. Almost the only thing that we know is some of the planets, kind of, a little bit, and every once in a while they'll name drop Yoda just to flex that he's there, but he
let's be
doesn't
real,
do
Yoda,
anything.
No one knows the whole thing. The first 2 books so far, no one knows where he is
Yeah,
or
it's
what
like
he's doing. He's
Luke
just
number
like, he's a
2 all of a sudden.
grandmaster, but he's off doing his own thing. Grandmaster Veter is the one who's like actually seems to be in charge. So
Yeah, it's like Yoda. Oh, we felt him. Like in the first book, they felt him.
yeah, we felt his presence.
We felt his presence. He's there. And then like, oh, what would Yoda do? I'm like, stop name dropping Yoda and just give us Yoda, okay? Like, anyways, but like it very much to me felt like I was reading like Game of Thrones. Like these characters I have no idea anything about really. You're supposed to know this name. I'm like, I don't know this name. Who is this name? I gotta remember. And then halfway through that chapter, I remember, and then we leave to a different chapter, and then I have to remember that. It was like,
And like what I really hated that they did in this book with the names is, you know, they gave everyone's first and last name, and sometimes they called them by their first name, and sometimes they called them
their
by their
last
name.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who is this random character?
Yeah.
and then it goes back to going to the first name. Like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm like, why are they doing this?
Yeah.
Just stick
Or
with one name.
Or sometimes they say like Padawan or Jedi. Like they don't even say the character, but you're supposed to remember that person's a Padawan, not a Jedi master. And it's just like, at first it kind of was confusing. Towards the end of the book, it obviously you understand because everyone's in the same room. Like everyone's in the same scene. So towards the end of the book, you're like, oh yes. Okay, they're on this part of the planet. Oh, they're over here. Or they're overviewing the planet as this is happening. You know what I mean? So, like, you do understand more. The only time that it was, like, all right, understanding what was really going on was anytime they mentioned the bad guys. Because they were kind of always together. So you kind of understood.
Right.
Well, to be fair, there are quite literally, like, 4 or 5 bad guys. You know, you have Marcion Rowe, you have Lorna D, Panada, and then
some random like
the little dude in the mech suit.
Yeah.
That is the new Tempest Runner now. You know, like
you
have them. You know, you have the Chandra fan Doctor in The Gaze Electric that makes an appearance a few times in his voice in the audiobook. I wanted to punch through the fabric of space-time every time I heard his voice. So
yeah, he was kind of annoying. But
kudos to you, Mark Thompson, for doing an outstanding job.
True. But even with the audiobook, because when I read Star Wars book, I'm reading along with an audiobook. That's what I normally do.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm super engaged. I can hear the sounds. The voice acting helps follow along. Yeah, and like different sounds of people's voice. And even with that, I was still confused by who was who. So I understand that, Jeremiah. If I was just reading this, I would be probably upset and probably would put this down.
And also what I hated with like reading in the books was like the dialogues when it's like a long dialogue back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And like you forget who's saying what because there doesn't say like said so and so, like it's just the quotes, and I'm like, so I have to like start, okay, the first person to talk was this.
You almost have to read it twice.
Every other line is this person. I gotta like walk through it again, and I was just, I don't know.
And that's the thing that if you are listening to it, you don't have to deal with that as much. And if you're just purely listening to this, it's a good book. I'm not trashing on it completely. I really do like the story, and I think the next book is going to be really good. I think the next book is going to make this universe really whole and really good. It's just...
Well, if it doesn't, it's going to be a pretty large fail because it's a trilogy. So
true.
You know, that's my hope. That's my hope as well.
But yeah, just what I'm saying, like, I'm not going to fully hate it, but if this is your first Star Wars experience, these 2 books, like Jeremiah...
Yeah.
there's better books out there, my dude. In my opinion, and if you read Last Star, Jeremiah, I know your opinion on Star Wars books would change significantly.
Yeah, but I don't care about romance
Okay.
stories,
All
so
right.
like that's
Well,
not gonna draw me in at all.
And I have a whole list of books that I think you should read that would change your perspective on Star Wars books, but
true.
by your standards, they don't matter.
Well,
So,
but even though the Thrawn trilogy, Jeremiah,
oh well,
is
yeah,
not
I
like
mean,
this. And
wholeheartedly, actually, the canon Thrawn stuff is amazing,
yes,
hands down, 10 out of 10.
really good, amazing.
For me personally, they're all phenomenal books. So, um, so I guess after all of that, is it my turn?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So, I for one did have some of the problems you guys mentioned. So, Jeremiah, it is interesting that you say what you said about the dialogue, because there were actually times that I can remember having to retrace my steps and be like, this person said this and then this and that. Oh, okay. So now that makes a lot more sense, or like listen to it via the audiobook, specific parts. I think anytime, we've talked about this before, anytime you can listen to the audiobook and read at the same time, it's always going to be a stronger experience, in my opinion, with Star Wars, because especially if it's Mark Thompson, or, like they did with the Dooku Jedi Lost, which was like an audio drama. They have a full cast.
Or like the Ahsoka book is literally
Yeah.
Jessica, and that book was so good.
Jessica?
Or I mean, not Jessica. The voice of Ahsoka. Ashley, that's what I meant to say, not Jessica.
All right.
Oh,
Well, anyways, now that happened, so I do admit that I did have some troubles. I will say that there's a lot. There, I just looked down at the chat.
Stop! I know.
Jessica Epstein. Anyways, yeah. So but it's not Epstein. It's Eckstein. Eckstein, yeah. Eckstein. Anyways, there were some times where, because of how much was going on, because like what I tend to do is I read right before bed. So I'll get ready for bed. My wife and I both do. We get in earlier than we normally would if we were just going to sleep, and then she looks at like Zillow or reads articles or something, and then I will just read a Star Wars book. So what that means, yeah, it's great. So what that means is, like, I normally get probably an hour, maybe an hour and a half. If there's something like I'm super hooked on, I'll continue to read after she's asleep. Like my longest time is just under 3 hours, which was not healthy, but that's beside the point. So, keep in mind that, like, I was reading this in small chunks, and there were definitely times where, like, the next day I would have to go back and like skim over what I read and be like, oh, okay, so this is what's going on. So, there's a lot happening in this book, and that does not aid to its readability, or the ability to comprehend what's going on with all of the characters, because, like we've said multiple times, there are a lot of really strong characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that can be a strength in some respects. You have a good handful of really well-developed characters that aren't just like characters, no offense, Drew, like Boba Fett was for the longest time, where like he's like, I mean, but let's be real. He was super cool.
Exactly.
There was a lot of hype about him, but it was just like he was.
And part of that
Fett.
hype was no one knew anything about him.
Exactly.
But we don't have those situations for sure.
But in this story, you have, between like 5 and 10 characters that get some of the same attention that you would expect out of a main character each.
Right.
And so that can be a strength. That can be a hindrance. I liked it. And then there were times that I was like, can we stop? Can we stop jumping around?
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and say that before I get into the stuff that I liked, this was not my favorite. I thought it was great. I thought it was a good book.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, it's not my favorite Star
But
Wars book.
would you say you enjoyed the first book more?
Yeah,
Yeah, me too.
yeah.
I love
I,
the end of this book a lot more though.
now
Kind
the
of
end of
weird.
this book, and we'll get there, but the end of this book was, I think, more of a cliffhanger than the end of the first book was, with Elzar having the vision.
Right.
And it makes me really excited for what's to come. But yeah, I enjoyed the first book more. I did, because there was, I guess, less going on.
Yeah,
You know,
it was less crowded.
yeah. So, but here's some of the things that I loved.
Is it
I,
real quick? Is it the same writer or no?
No.
no,
I was gonna say it does not feel like the same writer.
no. But here's some things that I really enjoyed. One, I really have enjoyed, and I've said this before, that the High Republic is kind of gently redefining the way we look at Jedi. I think the Jedi in this series are getting a different level of complexity, a completely new, set of skills, and they're doing different things than we've seen before in canon Star Wars media. Now, I say canon Star Wars media specifically because there's some crazy stuff like this happening in the Legends continuity. But I do really like the Jedi. I like these Jedi a lot more than I like any other Jedi in canon right now as a whole. Like as a Jedi Order, I like them a lot more in the High Republic, because we see them doing like so many cool things with the Force. We've got Avar's Force song, bringing everyone together in unison ability.
Which we don't get her in this book, which I was kind of
No,
pissed about. Like,
which and that's a point that I want to hit, and I'll do that in just a second, before I completely lose my train of thought.
David
But
in the
I
chat
do really enjoy the
said.
Jedi.
David in the chat said Jedi's are real heroes for once, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would
I
agree
mean,
with that statement.
there are some moments. There are quite a few moments where people like straight up would have died had it not been for the Jedi being there. Now, a lot of people did die, but that was really cool. I love the way that they talk about the Force in these books, and the things that they can do with bringing, like the Jedi together when they were flying their vectors and saving people and holding things together with the Force in different ways. And, you know, I think there's some really, really cool, really exotic uses of the Force in these two books, and I love that. I love that it seems like they're more powerful as a whole. I think the Jedi that we're encountering just overall are individually more powerful and more able. We're seeing them fight more. I think from a Jedi action point of view, they're doing a lot better job than we saw in the prequels, at least. So that's one thing I really enjoyed. In line with that, one of the things that I really liked was Elzar's character in this, because this
really?
is the, huh?
Really?
Yeah, because he seemed so much more human and relatable because of his failings.
He reminded me of
like,
Anakin number 2, and it kind of annoyed me.
Oh, I didn't make that connection at all. Because
Even by his actions, though.
No, well, but the problem is the main difference between him and Anakin is that he actually did the right thing in the end.
So far,
because so far, but at the end of this, he's straight up like come to Stellan and is like, "Yo, dude, I need help. Like, I need you to help me through this. Here's my mistakes. I did this, and let's walk through this together." Whereas Anakin literally killed thousands of people.
Yeah. I get that part. It just seemed the story kind of seemed redundant when it came to his story, because I felt like I was reading Anakin Part 2, and I was like, that's literally what they came up with.
When I was reading that, I was like, wow, this is finally the first Jedi. Well, because with Anakin, we knew he had to turn, right? You start the prequels knowing he's Darth Vader. But with Stellan, his ending is still no pun intended, an open book, right?
Stellan
And
or
it's-
Elzar?
or sorry, Elzar.
Okay.
And so it was really nice to see him like give in to these things that aren't good for a Jedi to give into, and then see him walk through those internal realizations and be like, holy crap, what just happened? Like on two pretty large occasions in this book. And then
But he only
see
admitted
him-
to one of them, though, didn't he?
I think he was gonna tell Stellan about the other one.
But he didn't. And that's, for me, that's why I'm like, it seems very Anakin-like.
But
Yeah.
see, but with him, like I see what Andrew's saying, but there wasn't enough of his character in this book to.
And that
True.
brings me back to the fact that the number of characters in this book was a hindrance.
Because like I thought going in that Elzar was going to be the main character. Because like he's early on in the book, we see him like he's like they introduce
Yeah, I
him
mean,
like he's
it starts with him.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
like I was okay, like we're gonna be following him as to his eyes through the whole book,
Which
but
would have been
most-
cool, I
which would
think.
have been great because I wanted to know that story, but they ended up doing it more so from Stellan's perspective, that he was the main character in this book seemingly,
Yeah.
and so like I wanted to know more about Elzar. Like every single time that he came up, like I was like, hey, what's gonna happen? Like, I thought it was gonna finally turn every chapter like focus on him to like the rest of the story, but every time it was just one chapter and then it goes off and does a bunch of other stuff, and I was like, oh, like now next book, you know,
I think
probably gonna be bigger,
from,
but
from these two books, though, it seems like they don't want one character to, like, have a book yet.
Well, okay, so
'Cause
this
It seems
I-
like these 3 books are going to be, like, all of them, and then they're going to have their own books.
okay, so I can talk about more about what I liked later. This brings me to a point that I wanted to make and discuss, and that is how much of its story is being told in young adult novels and in comic books
That we're not reading.
that we're not reading.
Mhm.
And so, you know, the High Republic, it's a publishing initiative. Like, we have to keep that in the forefront of our mind.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't just these 3 main books.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of other stories that are even referenced in this novel that are there, that are present, that are taking place. Like the whole thing with the Dringer is a whole other novel, and it's not even a young adult novel. Like, it's another full novel in phase 1 that I haven't read yet.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that, you know, Avar Chris is out doing this thing with the Dringer, I'm sure that is going to be another novel that has yet to come out. You know, it's another story. And
And that's not even touching comic books.
correct.
Like,
Now,
there's,
this
I don't know how
story-
deep they are in the comic books, but Free Comic Book Day, they gave out a High Republic free comic book.
Yeah.
So it seems like there's a lot of comics for the High Republic
There
already.
and there are, you know, and you know, spoilers for the stuff that's yet to come. The first Sith that we're ever gonna get in the High Republic era is literally going to be released in a comic later in the year. I have no idea who that's gonna be and what part they're gonna play, but all of this to say, their world building and their world building through print media very quickly. And they're establishing this very quickly. And love it or hate it, you don't have to consume all of this material to understand these first 2 books. But I know doing so would have made understanding these 2 books a lot easier.
More, yeah.
And Drew, I think you're right. I think that they are kind of toying with these, like, you know, 5 to 10 main characters in hopes of
Getting us to go other medias and figure out more.
Right. I mean, there are other people. There are Jedis that, you know, show up in multiple stories,
Yeah.
and there are characters that show up in other stories. You know, side characters that show up in multiple stories. You don't have to read all the extra stuff to understand these. Like I said, like, it's not mandatory. but the model that they're using for this, I feel like they're walking the line of doing too much.
Yeah, and it seems I don't want to use the word sloppy because I feel like that's too aggressive. But after these 3 books, I feel like I don't know if they can do this without showing us a visual media version of the High Republic.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's one thing when
even the official concept art for some of the characters is still pretty limited.
exactly like it's hard to Google a character sometimes and visually see this character. And I think, and that's kind of what I was talking about earlier with other Star Wars books, is because a lot of those books you do know them in a different media, and then it helps you read the story because you're picturing these characters. And so, like, if they keep going like this and they want you to read everything, I just think they're gonna lose money.
Well, I guess I would just think that they would do it more slowly.
Which
and
but-
really flesh things out as they release it. But again, they probably have a whole slate of things coming that obviously we don't know about.
yeah. But I mean,
so-
even when they dropped the first one of these books, right? Wasn't the young adult novels like released like the next week or something like that?
It was pretty quickly, yeah.
And then after that, it was like the comics are like fully out. They come out every week, and it's just like when they have Star Wars comics, it's like, oh, this is like the origin of Kylo Ren. Let me go check this out because I know who Kylo Ren is. I want to see this. Like that's how they pitch this marketing point. But when you're jumping into a full universe that no one really knows and randomly they'll drop Yoda's name, that is not enough to get people to want to read everything about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's weird to have an initiative with all these new characters and stuff without giving us a media version.
Well, and there were 2 points in the Twitch stream that were made. One, David says Star Wars has always done that. They've always made you feel unfulfilled when not diving into the expanded canon media. It's just the same with media that has no live action representation. And then obviously the other point is read the comics. The comics are very visual. They have a lot of the main characters in them. But at the end of the day, for me, Star Wars has always been different. Like I have read other book series that have no visual media, like Aragon. We're not going to even discuss the movie.
Oh, Lordy.
We're not going there.
We already discussed it in a previous episode.
You know, like I read the Artemis Fowl books growing up and the Redwall books growing up and like...
Or Hunger Games before those movies came out.
Right. And so, but the expectation for me is different with Star Wars because we got the films first. We like the films were the first thing aside from, I guess, technically the novelization of the first movie, which I'm pretty sure released a little bit before the movie. But you get what I'm saying. Like we had the movies first that established the universe visually. And then when we started getting expanded universe material, it's like, sure, I may not know what Wayland is or what it looks like. Sure, I may not understand these new planets, but I do know who Luke and Han and Leia are. And I can at least have this kind of mental and visual
like an anchor in the story.
Correct.
And I feel like that's what they're trying to do with Yoda, but it's not working at all.
Okay, you need to get off your anti-Yoda.
It's annoying.
It's not annoying. You're just salty.
It wasn't as annoying for me.
It's annoying for me because why even say that he's there? It doesn't matter. It's just another name to read for no reason.
Okay, but who cares? His name's in there like 5 times. Get over it.
No,
okay,
but like my point is it doesn't matter, so don't say him.
Okay, we get that, but you don't have to bring it up every 5 seconds in this discussion about the book.
Well, I mean, but this is I think that's their way to anchor the story.
No.
And see, I think they're more so doing something completely new in the fact that they're throwing a slew of new characters, a new time period, and a slew of cultural differences at us all at once, which makes it gives you kind of like a like a Star Wars whiplash in some respects.
Well, see, I would say that the anchors that they use in this series is stuff that is established in the future, like with hyperspace lanes. Like it's an anchor point.
Yeah.
The Bacta stuff, that's an anchor point.
Mm-hmm.
Early on in the book, the like one of the inventors at the shipyards or whatever, he was like he's inventing, the process of reading when someone's entering from hyperspace.
Yeah.
We already have that in the
Yeah.
future
Yeah.
as and so he's using it as an anchor point.
Yeah.
So I think it's,
Yeah. There's.
what I like about this is it's pointing to the future of things that we already know,
Correct.
and how
Yeah.
they're getting there, and that's the only anchors that they have. So maybe with Yoda, they're using it like that, where we don't really know a lot about him, but like we're looking to the future. Like yes, we know about Yoda, so that's keeping us anchored. Therefore, there's that. But I think like they have to in some ways show that the story is moving towards something, and with those anchor points, that's what it does.
Yeah.
And like I got some of it's like I wish they would kind of like expand upon a little bit more, but like it's not the point of the anchor points. So like even though I'm disappointed by it, like I'm not upset that they didn't do it. It's that they're not supposed to. Like that's not the point of the story, and not to explain back to stuff. They just had a couple references to it throughout, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I mean, it's a huge mixed bag of things, where I 100% believe like this is some of the strongest Star Wars storytelling we've gotten since Disney has taken over, like, and the freshest.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also having to do the really difficult job of starting from scratch almost in some respects, and doing some brand new world building through your print publication media forms, whereas they're not to your Disney Plus series or your movies yet. They're not there quite yet. So it is what it is. I think they would have been easier to digest if there had been less jumping around, and if there hadn't been as many characters. But I still think the second half of this book is a 10 out of 10 for me. Like, it was good. It was.
Oh
good.
yeah, no. I think
once stuff started picking up, like, it was one of the best Star Wars stories I've read recently.
no, I agree with that. I think towards the end of the book, the last half of the book is really, really good. But I don't think you need the first half of the book to make the last half of the book good. If that makes any sense.
I think one of the reasons why they drew out the first half so long was because you knew something bad was going to happen.
Oh,
And
that's
so
fair.
It's building the tension.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because like they could have done it like 10 chapters in it's happening, but like there would be less of a payoff because it wasn't like it was earned.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're seeing it from their perspective, where they don't
everything's
think
hunky
anything's-
dory, everything's
they
nice and
think,
sweet.
Like
Yeah.
they took precautions. They're ready for something if something were to happen, but they were like not expecting anything to happen, and they were under prepared, especially since the Nile are using those hyperspace lane jumps that are unheard of. Like they don't even know how they're doing it, type of thing. So like they couldn't prepare for it. But
I want a book just about the Nihil. That's what I want. I want a Nihil.
There's a comic series, I believe, coming soon that's centered around Lorna D. So could be something fun. I mean, there still is a lot of mystery, and I think that's part of the fun too. But we
True,
can get
that
to
is part of the fun.
So let's shift gears and just kind of do a brief overview of the plot to give people an idea of what happened. Obviously, your spoiler warning what is pretty much a given, but if for some reason you've made it this far into the episode and you haven't read it and you don't want the story ruined, here's your spoiler warning.
True. Also, just come to the end of it, and you can listen to voicemails.
Yeah. So this is like a super high level 30,000 foot view. But we open with Elzar Mann, still haunted by visions of death and carnage. And he is assigned to the Jedi outpost on Valo to oversee the Republic Fair, a demonstration of unity between various planets orchestrated by Chancellor Lena So. It's one of her great works. And this whole thing is to emphasize and celebrate and hopefully strengthen the "we are all the Republic" like unity type deal in hopes of bringing everyone together. We learn later that the Togrutas are not a part of the Republic at this point. And I loved that. Actually really enjoyed the Togruta characters.
I think that was my favorite part of the whole book.
Really?
were those characters. They were just so menacing.
Yeah.
You couldn't even see them. Like, they're just so menacing. And I really loved the queen, or Gregisa, whatever her name was.
Yeah, the Regisa.
I really
Regasa.
loved her as a character, and how like she was such a wise leader with Lena So there, and
Yeah.
like they could run for president and like together.
You heard it here first.
I'd vote for them.
All right.
Everyone. The interesting thing about the beginning, one interesting point that I want to bring out is that we get another reference to Tython, and the moon of Ashla. Ashla and Bogan were what people use to describe the dark side and the light side of the Force in the expanded universe. At least primarily in the very olden days of the Jedi. And as we know, Tython is believed, especially in Legends continuity, it's believed to be the birthplace of the Jedi Order. Which is going to be interesting because I just picked up Into the Void, which is an expanded universe novel that is literally the first expanded universe, the earliest expanded universe novel in that timeline. It's like 25,000 or something years, or even farther than that. I don't remember, but it's like a disgustingly far amount of time before the events of A New Hope. So, anyways, I thought that was interesting that they're bringing that back into canon. It'll be interesting to see where they take those things because, as we know, little by little, they're sneaking stuff in from the expanded universe and being like, hey, see, here you go. There's a thing. Maybe it'll make you happy. Who knows?
Makes you happy.
It did. It was a nice reference. I read that and I was like, oh, that's nice. So anyways, he goes to Ashla. He goes in to the ocean, has this crazy force vision thing, and knows he needs to go to Valo. But there's a lot of tension early on with Elzar, where he misses Avar, who he very clearly has feelings for. And then we get that confirmed later on in a fairly revealing way. That was the other thing, too.
So I don't want to know if this is going to breach our PG-13 thing, but is this the first time they used that word, the S word, in Star Wars?
I don't know.
Because I was like, I've never heard that word before. Also, what was the lady's name? Samara?
Yeah.
Did she roofie him?
I don't think so.
Because it says he took a drink, because she gave him a drink.
Yeah.
And he says that after he took that drink, he didn't remember anything until the next morning.
I think that was just kind of an indication of his fit of passion.
Okay.
He also, I don't know what his alcohol tolerance is, and I don't know how strong the alcohol is on Valor.
True.
Or even
or
in Star Wars in general.
Star Wars.
So I mean, it could have been really strong.
It was just a weird.
Or she could have drugged him.
when I first read it, I was like, she roofied him, and that's not good.
Oh boy.
But then, like later on, as he was like processing it, it seemed like it was something he chose to do. So
Yeah.
I don't think Disney would touch that right now.
I would
But-
imagine that it was very consensual and intentional.
right,
on
but it
his
was just a
part.
weird,
Yeah.
like, it didn't really add to the story. I'm like, I didn't really get it why they put it in there. Maybe it'll come out in the next book, like its significance, but because what you said just a moment ago was he did the same thing with Avar, right?
Avar Chris, yeah, when they
Yeah.
were Padawans, interestingly enough. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting moments in this book for sure. Anyways, so he decides to go to Valo. Then Bel-Zettifar, now apprenticed to Indira Stokes, mourns his previous master, Loden Greatstorm, who he believes to be dead. And as a result, represses his Force instincts so that he cannot find out the truth. He's also grieving and shuts himself off from the Force as a part of that fear. Marchion Ro ventures to the Rystan Badlands and frees an ancient creature called the Great Leveler, who he believes will bring about the Jedi's doom.
So, a question about that.
Yes.
I didn't realize until the end that he awakened a creature. Did I
Yeah.
just miss that early on, or do we know it was a creature at the beginning of the book? Because I had no idea what just happened with that thing, like
I think it was.
happening.
I think it was hinted at earlier, but it was also frozen in ice.
Yeah, so because I thought it was another object.
Mm.
Because there was the whole purple
Yeah,
glowy thing.
yeah,
I thought this was like the second half of that piece that was going to come together and do something.
yeah.
And so
It definitely wasn't hinted at as strongly in the beginning as obviously when we reveal that it like starts moving around and going places.
yeah, and then it makes sense why that was a Dis. Was that his name? Lost his Force sensitivity. Like, it makes sense now
Yeah,
Yeah.
in hindsight.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
yeah. And so that is a interesting point. There's an avian species that he uses. So Marchion Ro they go back to his home, which is like this frozen tundra, and he and this old lady they go in with this avian species guy, Dis. That was his name.
I think it was, yeah, Dis.
Yeah, Dis. He's
like a
the
bird
creature.
Bird creature.
Yeah, he reminded me of I kept imagining him as the Zelda.
Dude, honestly,
The
yes,
bird people.
yes,
Why
yes.
am I blinking on their names? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild. Yep, that's
but you
literally
know
what
what I'm
I was
talking about.
picturing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the weird. Jeremiah might get this one. It kind of made me think of the bird from the Ooze Power Rangers movie. Did you ever
I
watch
remember that.
the first Power Rangers movie?
I-
The one that was in the
I can
theaters
remember there was
with
a
Ivan
bird.
Ooze,
But I can't remember. But
and he made the
I was-
birds.
but he had like Dis had the weapons on his wings or something.
Yeah, like
So I
wing
kind of
blades.
pictured from X-Men Apocalypse, like one of the guys that Apocalypse is recruiting has like wings and he puts like metal wings on
Oh,
him.
yeah.
I kind of pictured that. I don't know if that was accurate or not, but
Yeah, I just know that he had some slight force sensitivity, and
but the
Marchion was
book
basically
made
using
it
him.
seem like it was more than just slight force sensitivity.
yeah, he was. It seemed like it was
It's pretty intense.
because because his ability to fly was like Anakin
I
with
mean,
the
he
Speed Racer
he definitely
type, or
he,
Speed
he
Racer,
definitely
Pod
had that
Racer.
precognition thing where he could use it in fighting and he could use it while he was flying.
Yeah,
and
I
stuff,
was-
but he wasn't like Jedi strong.
I was talking to David about this, and David was saying it seemed like their whole species was like that. Like
Yeah,
all of them are very force sensitive
Yeah.
beings.
Yeah,
But
I got that impression too.
secluded, like they're not. They're like in the outer rim, or like
Yeah.
like no one really knows of their creature, really at all. which is interesting.
Yeah. So he uses him and kills him. He basically uses him to check the effects of the leveler on a force sensitive being, and then kills him. But it is interesting. The effects that they go into detail is kind of crazy. He like starts losing his mind temporarily around this thing, and then Martian kills him. So there's that. Let's see. Jedi Knight Stellan Gios travels with Chancellor So to Valo to hold a broadcast by Real Dyro. So that's a whole nother thing. There's another character named Real Dyro who is like I guess cyborg is the right word. But she's a broadcaster, a news broadcaster, and she's along for the entire thing, and it's like given exclusive access to Stellan and to Chancellor So to film and record the whole thing, and basically for the sake of transparency.
Yeah. Which, with her character, I, for some reason, was picturing a cyborg with blonde hair, because I feel like most newscasters have blonde hair. I don't know why. So I was just like, oh, this blonde girl that remembered throughout the story that she was a cyborg. I'm like, wait, maybe she probably does not look like that. Never mind.
But yeah, I mean, she had some pretty heavy technological implants on her head, or in her head at least.
Yeah, so this kind of reminded me of an issue I had with the book. With like the new stuff was probably like the most big aspect of it, but like I felt like it was just a regular,
CNN.
like regular, like the book itself was like this is like regular life here on Earth
Yeah.
with Jedi and
Oh, I
monsters
see.
in it.
I see.
Like it didn't feel like the Star Wars universe. It just felt like what I see every day
Really?
here. Yeah, like with the news thing, like we don't see news stuff in Star Wars. Like we
True,
don't see
that
news
is-
broadcasts. We don't
that's
see
a
news
different-
anchors.
Different concept,
And so
I
like
guess.
it's something like it's very weird.
It's
to have
definitely
this.
mentioned more in the books, like the HoloNet news and stuff. Like,
And then
Anyways,
and then
go ahead.
like the fair itself, like
I just was picturing like
it-
the state fair on
yeah, I
floating.
picture it as like the Minnesota State Fair and people just going on rides and
Yeah.
eating food and
And there's a zoo version on these floating
Yeah,
things.
and-
Well, I mean,
it's
they
just-
did that in the Star Wars universe.
No, yeah, they did
just
have
saying
parties and
it-
stuff, but Jeremiah's
was
trying to say
very-
it didn't.
it was
feel-
like human
Yeah.
like traditions and human way of humans on here on Earth, how we do things in our life,
Which
in our world.
in the beginning of the galaxy, that might have been how they did it. You know, like maybe it would have been a little similar to what we do here. You know,
Maybe they were taking Ford Model Ts through hyperspace,
That'd be kind of cool.
and lightsabers were really sharp sticks. And they just made the noises with their mouths. Anyways,
Yeah.
all right. Moving on. Ty Yorick, a monster hunter and former Jedi Padawan, is assigned to journey to Valo with a client who is carrying a mysterious weapon.
Duh, duh, duh.
Yep. So that's a whole nother. That was a whole nother side story that I was like, I have no idea where they're going with this, and then it kind of played in, and I was like, okay, now
Because it's I
we're
feel
all
like
in the
that's
same place, I guess.
That's
You know.
So-
yeah.
Do we want to talk about that story now or later?
We can talk about it now.
So clearly, the next book is going to be about
Yes.
the Nile using this device to stop plasma-based weaponry. So lightsabers, blasters, all that stuff.
So for what we're referring to, everyone, there is in this book, Ty Yorick, the people that she is assigned to escort to the Republic Fair is this mother and and a daughter who have this prototype weapon that essentially nullifies all energy-based weapons in a certain radius. I mean, like everything, blasters, lightsabers, it completely knocks them out. It's like an EMP, but for laser stuff. But the element that is used in it is apparently like super
Potent.
volatile and
Yeah.
illegal, and like every time someone mentioned it, they were like, "What? Get that thing out of here!" Like, I guess it's like
It's like
kind of
uranium
a
or something.
yeah, or like radioactive mercury. I'm trying to think of something in our world,
It's like walking around with the bomb, atomic bomb.
or like the atomic slag in like the basement of Chernobyl or something. I don't know, something super dangerous that people shouldn't have around. Anyways,
It's like
so-
walking cancer, and if you breathe
Right.
it in, you could get it. And
yeah.
Just wear a mask.
So yeah, Jeremiah, back to what you were saying. There's some context for everyone.
So, if that is, going to be the main thing that takes place in the next book, is the vision that Elzer had in book 1 actually about that happening next book and not the stuff that happened on Valo?
ooh, that's a good question.
So the purple glow is related, I'm pretty sure, to the leveler, because
Right.
we get a little bit of that right at the end of this book.
Yeah, and Elzer said, doesn't he say something like something bad's coming or whatever at the end? I can't remember.
Yeah.
And so like I was reading that to the last chapter or last couple chapters, and it just seemed like what Elzer had his vision as has not taken place yet. And so I don't know if you guys had that same.
David made a valid point, and I remember this. Elzar states that Vala was his vision coming true, but
Did he think that
I-
what it
I
was?
also-
But
I also think that could have been his interpretation of it,
Right.
and that really, because like the purple light was very clearly the leveler, because we see that, we get a glimpse of that in the end of this book with the leveler when it attacks.
well, because the purple thing is like what controls the leveler, right? Because there's two aspects.
Yeah,
So I think
it's like the staff and then the thing itself.
right, and so
Yeah.
because I feel like I have to go back and read in the first book Elzer's vision, but it seemed like Avara Chris was in that vision too, like being killed or something.
It was kind
And
of a
so-
general, like, all of the people that I know and love are dying, essentially, that sort of a thing. So
Also, when they use that little device when they do the demonstration with the plasma negator thing,
yeah.
I totally thought Elzer got killed.
Yo, I did too.
I was like, no, this can't happen.
Yeah.
Like, this
Yeah.
is like the first third of the book. Like,
Yeah, everyone, there's a scene where Senator Toon, the Celestin,
I think it's at the end, yeah.
he's there, brokering a deal, essentially, seeing what this weapon can do. The Jedi show up. So it's Stellan, Elzar, and Bell.
Bell, yeah.
And then Ty is there, obviously, and then she ignites her lightsaber and they're fighting, and she like low-key bests Elzar, and then she literally goes
Pushes
to
her
lightsaber
thing.
into his chest.
And
Yeah.
I was
And
like,
that is the moment where it shuts off. And I was like, oh no. Anyways, so that's the whole little side thing about and you find out that the mother wasn't the scientist, it was the daughter who is actually the genius. So that was cool, I guess. There's a plot twist.
It was
very
like
twisty.
a weird plot twist that didn't matter.
Drew is all about saying things didn't
well, it's
matter
all
in this
about
book.
keeping a low profile.
Yeah, it was a
like,
low pro. I mean, I guess, but I think when we first got revealed of the weapon and they presented it to that one, was it counselor or what's his
The
position?
senator.
The
Senator.
senator. Yeah.
Like when they first presented it to him, he was like, "Oh, put it away." It didn't seem as intense, and then when they talk about it again later, it seems like it's a way more intense weapon. Like he was talking about how this is illegal, I would never do this, and put it away. But when they mention it again, it's like, oh wow, this is like really bad.
Well,
for
it's
you.
because they finally had the realization that it can literally shut down people's lightsabers, which is kind of like the one, aside from the Force, it's like the big advantage. Because, like, sure, there's some Jedi that can, like, block blaster bolts with their force, but not all of them can. And you take their lightsabers away, and some of them, especially the younger ones, are much more defenseless than others. So
And,
it's pretty crippling.
and it's going to be a 1-2 punch because with the leveler, you lose your force sensitivity.
Yep.
And in this device, you can't even use your lightsaber
Right.
or a blaster. So if you're a Jedi, so
They might have to get some clones.
No.
well, they won't be able to use their blasters.
True.
Like,
We'll have to go back to using
MMA
sharp
fighters.
sticks.
Just
But-
MMA. Ewoks.
ooh.
Get a whole
Yep.
bunch of Ewoks. They got this.
Plot twist. This third book is actually just the next installment in the Ewoks movie series.
Ooh.
I'm
in novel
down.
form.
Let's go. Jeremy,
But-
bring back Jeremy.
but with the Senator Toon, because his whole thing to the whole half of the book before everything hits the fan is he wants a Republic military, basically.
Defense force, yeah.
Yeah, so like it's interesting that he's campaigning for this, and then there's this major attack.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that in the next book there's going to be
Yeah.
a bigger push, like by more senators and Republic to have a defense force. But when we get to episode 1, there isn't one. There is no.
Yeah.
So it's like weird. Like so something happened where they did not create this military, or maybe they
Yeah,
do,
that was-
and something they end it, dismantle
Yeah.
it for some reason.
That was something that was his major subplot, was pushing back and honestly being really annoying and kind of like savage to people at times, with the mindset that he was looking for the best for the Republic in creating a defense force, because he was like, I don't want to get rid of the Jedi, but I don't want to have to completely rely on the Jedi to
Right.
be the only line of defense, which makes, I mean, especially after this book, makes
Yeah.
total sense, so anyways, moving on from that. So that was all kind of a offshoot of Ty Yorick.
Yeah.
So Elzar believes that he has prevented his visions from coming to fruition after the fair seems to start and go well, and has a one-night stand with the Valen in charge of the fair, Samira Ra'un, in order to repress his feelings of rejection from Avar Kriss. The Jedi discover and arrest Ty and her buyer after seeing them test out machinery that can shut down electronics, including a lightsaber blade, which we just mentioned. And then after the fair's main event, a Nihil fleet arrives on Valo using the pass and bombards the planet, killing many spectators and some Jedi. One thing that we didn't hit on at the beginning was, so we have this ship, the Innovator, right?
Yes.
It's a big selling point for Chancellor So in the Republic, because it's this massive scientific engineering vessel. It's not a military ship. It's this whole thing is like, we're not creating a military ship. We're creating something that can go out and explore things and do experiments and like be a medical bay and help people and like, push the boundaries of what we're doing scientifically. And it's being built and finished in the Cyclor shipyards, where we see Bell and Indira at the beginning when he's still mourning the loss of Loden and all that stuff. And then obviously there's an attack. There is a kind of a rogue Nihil cell that attacks those shipyards earlier in the book. And Bell gets wrecked.
Dude,
He gets
yeah,
a harpoon through a space harpoon
space harpoon
through his torso.
Yeah, I was
yeah.
shocked. Like, I was like, I didn't think the Bacta stuff was that
Yeah.
good. Even like in
Yeah.
the Skywalker saga era, like I didn't think it was that good.
Yeah.
Especially now when they're just still learning how to use it and develop it.
Yeah.
So-
I thought Bell was gonna die, which sucks because Bell is one of my favorite characters. But like That's kind of the one of the big main things that happens earlier on in the book before the Nihil attack starts is like him and Indira are out fighting this Nihil cell, and the Nihil eventually get wiped out. You know, there's another full wing of Jedi that show up, including Porter Engle, who's also awesome. But like Bell gets wrecked. He gets a harpoon through him, and like is kind of BA, helps hold his ship together, gets back. You know, he helps hold his ship together with the Force. Indira does some really incredible stuff with the Force and helping him out. They get him back and he recovers. But
Well, his dog helped him out a lot. Which,
yeah,
That dog, I want that dog.
for real,
Yeah.
me too.
Like a
It's like,
flame,
good old
flamethrower
Charhound.
dog.
Yeah,
But so when I was reading this, interaction when he's out on his vector fighting the Nile, like, so I can't remember when we talked about this. Was like months ago, but you guys said something, or maybe it was just Andrew. I can't remember about how Jedi and the Force can only sense living things or something like that, and they can't sense like droids or anything like that. But in this book, especially with Bell when he was flying his vector, it was very like the Force could help him see objects and robots and all that stuff, and they weren't organic. Do you remember that conversation months ago?
I remember it. But there's a difference between precognition and sensing inanimate objects specifically.
Because the example you used was in episode 2 with the worms that went to go kill Padme. Like you said, like Anakin and Obi-Wan did not sense the
Yeah.
droid,
Yeah.
but sensed the worms. But in this book, especially with Bell in this scene, it's he was sensing the locations of all the physical objects in front of him. And there's the scene when there's all these like buzz droid type things coming at him.
Yeah.
And he has to like just trust in the Force to like zoom between them and get past the cloud of these, and he does it perfectly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he sensed droids and their locations so he could navigate through it, and there was nothing living there. So
this is gonna sound like splitting hairs,
okay.
but it's not necessarily him sensing the droids themselves, more so as the Force guiding him through the path as an external entity. You see what I'm saying? So it's not like, oh, I know where all the droids are, but like, no, he's giving himself over to the Force and is allowing the Force to guide him through the droids.
Trouble waters.
I don't know, but there are other points in the book too, like during the attack or the Jedi, where I
mean, you could be right. I think it's a combination of the Force guiding them and also precognition allows them. Like, we know that precognition allows Jedi to fight battle droids super well and see what's going to happen split seconds before it already happens. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're being able to sense an inanimate object the way that they can an actual living being that's a part of the living Force. They can, and even still, they might not be able to sense the object, but they can also sense the danger. It's really weird.
Yeah,
Who knows? You could be 100% right.
We have to someday, if I meet Dave Filoni or Pablo Hidalgo, say hey.
They're all going to say different things too.
Yeah,
they will inevitably.
Or John Favreau.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyways, that's one thing I wanted to go back and just hit on is that Bell gets wrecked and really proves himself as a Jedi, and he recovers. Anyways, so we're at this point. So basically, there are some really important things that happen in the first part of this book, but it's basically setting up all of these side stories, including but not limited to Bell and Indira taking on the Nihil there at the shipyard. The whole thing with Elzar and his internal struggles and him falling for this fair coordinator as a result of being like rejected by Avar. Like all these things are happening, but then it all comes to a head when the Nihil attack the fair on Valo.
Yeah. So before we get to that, there's one thing that I want to bring up in this first half. So there's actually, I don't know if you have your books with you, but
No, mine's in my book cupboard.
so on page 161,
Uh-huh.
there is a paragraph that I'd like to read because it goes back to um, one of our best episodes when we talked about where did the Jedi go wrong.
Yeah.
I would say that this paragraph here explains where the Jedi had a turning point and fell from their
Ooh.
ideals.
Okay.
So,
do tell.
page 161, bottom paragraph. Stellan looked over to the rostrum and saw Lena So watching the people, her people, streaming into the park with tears in her eyes. Despite everything, despite the dark days following the great disaster, despite being told that the Republic Fair would never happen, she had proved everyone wrong. At that moment, Stellan believed that the Chancellor could do anything. Centuries from now, people of the galaxy would look back and see this day as a turning point, one that set the Republic's course for all time. And and he, for one, was glad that the Jedi were at the heart of it, where they belonged.
Ah.
So this here is when, from Stellan's perspective, the Jedi were one with the Republic. That there
Yeah.
was no distinction between the Republic and the Jedi. And I think that is a fatal flaw that the Jedi made, where they should have stayed their own entity separate from the Republic,
Yeah.
where they could have done their own thing and been who they vowed to be. But here, they are married to the Republic. And it was, it was for a good cause. Like, they wanted to, the one Republic, one people. They wanted to unite everyone and have no division.
Yeah.
But I think that ideal caused the Jedi to compromise their identity as a separate order from everyone else.
And that is interesting. We could honestly that could be a whole cantina discussion where we talk about should the Jedi have stayed separate, and if so, how does their extraordinary gifts and their ability to help people, how do they use that in the greater galaxy and all that stuff? But that is a very interesting point. I actually pulled up a digital version of the book, and it's interesting that you say that, because on the following page, at the bottom of the page, there's a blip that I wanted to read really quickly, where it talks about how the sponsor of today's episode is Wesley Andrews Coffee and Tea.
Oh gosh,
Dude, that was good.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, so since we're talking about that part in the book where it talks about Wesley Andrews, let's just go ahead and take a quick break and listen to a word from that sponsor, Wesley Andrews.
Nope.
Interesting. Fuzz.
I don't know why that is the case. That's I love when like something that worked every other time just doesn't work this time for whatever reason. Stand by.
Standing.
Oh, this will be edited out anyways. But
True.
find this bad boy again in my computer.
Tanner or David. Great ad, bro. I loved it.
Stop.
Just
I
do
don't know
that
why that
ad live
I don't know
ad.
why-
Here.
I don't know why that happened. That doesn't make any sense, but whatever. And now, for whatever reason, it's not showing up on my computer.
SpaghettiOs.
If you were here last week, you literally heard me use the same thing that I'm looking for right now. Like, I literally used it. Y'all heard it. It's
True.
brand new. Oh, this is great. Why is it not on my computer? Well, you know what? I'll put it in post.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
15% off.
Do it.
You can't go wrong.
You literally can't. All right. So let's jump back into it. So, there's a lot of stuff that happens in this part of the book. There's a lot of stuff happening. So, the Republic Fair. I think we hit on this a little bit before, but it's a big. Think of like a normal fair, but there are tons of floating platforms, hovering platforms with various exhibits, and there are a lot of them. And each one of these exhibits represents a world that is represented at the fair. With their people being there, their cultures exhibited, their food. They might have, their cultural food, or like they have, they all had different biomes. So like one might be a desert, one might be, it might be Hoth, and you might see a tauntaun or whatever. But like it was like essentially these like mini snapshots of their worlds and their culture, and you could take lifts in between them and visit different things. And they had a zoo with a bunch of like apex predators from different worlds. And
I was like,
sure
this
why
is
that
not
was a
going to
good
turn
idea.
out good.
Yeah, like
the three-headed one that Elzar connected to or whatever. The three heads, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there was basically dragons in this book. Star Wars dragons, essentially. So that's kind of the idea of the fair. There's a lot more. Like I feel like they barely even scratched the surface of describing this whole thing. But
can't forget about the song that got stuck in everybody's head every time.
Oh, like the Unity song.
Yeah.
That reminded me of, what is it from Disney? It's a Small World.
It's a small world after all.
Yeah, like that song.
That's a Disney song?
It gave me like that kind of a vibe where I'm like, I would have hated that.
Or the song from what was that show, Drew? Like Lamb Chop or something? What was that?
Lamb Chop.
Do you know what I'm talking about, Drew?
I know Lamb Chop. I don't know.
I don't remember the song though.
It's like, this is a song that never ends.
Oh yeah,
This is a song that never
Yeah, there you go.
I didn't know. I didn't know that was from Lamb Chop, but now that song
I don't know if it's
never
from
gonna
Lamb
leave
Chop.
my
But
It
I know
is.
I know this.
Because the Lamb Chop would sing it at the very end and annoy the old lady with the curly hair.
And there's a reason why Lamb Chop isn't around.
I had a Lamb Chop, I think, as a little kid.
I had a few Lamb Chops as a kid.
I don't think I've ever had lamb.
It's good.
It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, that song's in my head. Thanks, Jeremiah. I haven't heard that song in probably 10 years, and now it's all right.
All right.
So anyways, Chancellor So falls into a coma after falling prey to an orbital explosion while Stellan and the other Jedi stationed on Valo fight off the intruders. Ty and Elzar form a Force dyad, which allows them, I don't know if that's actually what it's called specifically.
Yeah, I was like.
But which allows them to tame dragon-like beasts to hamper the Nihil's efforts from the sky, though Elzar is forced to touch on the dark side of the Force at one critical point in the battle. So
That's a scene that I was.
They're
like,
saying
why
they're
was it
a
a dark side?
dyad?
Because he threw a
mountain, essentially. He threw like one of the platforms and like destroyed a bunch of Nihil with it, which was honestly, look, don't get me wrong, that was really cool. It was really freaking cool. Really powerful use of the Force. I was like, you know what? That's what I'm here for. Let's see some people do some crazy stuff with the Force. But I think it was because he tapped into it using his anger.
But like the Jedi that saw it happen recognized it as like someone, in order for this to happen, someone would have had to have used the dark side. So it's like,
Because it was so powerful?
And it was so destructive too.
is that?
And they could also probably feel that ripple in the Force too.
Oh yeah, maybe they could. Yeah, sense that. Yeah.
Yeah. That do you Twist in the chat was like, that was Star Killer level strength, and he's right. Like that, it reminds me of the Force Unleashed. But yeah, he basically chucks a mountain and kills a bunch of Nihil with it, which was really cool. But yeah, and him and Ty Yorick make a super deep Force bond in their minds, which is where Ty learns about his attraction to Avar and also the stuff they used to do when they were Padawans, unbeknownst to anyone else, I guess. I don't know how they kept that a secret, but anyways, and so they're super super linked, and they help tame the dragons, and then they fly on the dragons.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That was super freaking cool. They use the dragons to take down some of the Nihil ships. So the Nihil strategy in this raid was they jump in super close to the planet. So Pan Eta jumped in outside of the atmosphere and from his capital ship, started attacking people and basically running a space campaign, while Lorna D and a bunch of other people literally jumped into the atmosphere, which was interesting because we haven't seen that very much. We actually see it in The Force Awakens, but they talk about how dangerous this is and how like almost suicidal it was, and there are some people that do not make this jump. They like jump in and basically explode,
Right.
or crash. But they jump in, they land people on the ground, and they drop these gas bombs essentially that are disorienting. I thought of it kind of like tear gas,
Yeah.
almost. And then there's this invention that one of the Tempest runners comes up with, which is they're basically floating speaker drones that blast. What is it? Wreck punk? I'm pretty sure it was Wreck Punk.
Something like that.
It's like I thought about like how it's basically like thrash metal with trash cans.
Well, have you seen? I don't know if it was in the original, but have you seen the Mad Max remake?
Not yet.
So they do that literally. There's these because when I think of the Nile, I think of the
Mad Max.
Mad Max movie.
That's fair.
Like these kind of like really gross, like
They have none of them
Yeah.
match. They were wearing
and so
anything and everything.
in this movie, while these guys are like chasing after the good guys or whatever, and wreaking havoc, they have a guy on the front on a platform that's going crazy doing metal music.
Oh
while
yeah,
they're-
I've seen the trailer for it.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
this is what I was picturing. I was
It
just
reminds,
like,
yeah,
some guy playing the electric guitar, was like shredding it, like this.
yeah. It reminded me a lot of like a combination of like thrash metal, dubstep, and trash cans, just going off in the background.
You could put country music in there because that's basically the same. This is terrible. But
Oh boy. Definitely not as aggressive. But anyways, so the goal is to disorient people, and then obviously they can breathe in the gas because they have their masks on, and then they just kill people in the smoke. It's a fairly good tactic, I must say.
Right.
And their goal behind the attack was basically to show the Republic that they meant business, and gosh darn it, they needed to pay attention to them.
right.
And what a better way to do it than cause, this catastrophic terrorist attack level event. And to be fair, equating this to in our world would be like a 9/11 event would not be very far off.
Yeah.
Because hundreds of thousands, well, I don't know if hundreds of thousands, but for sure thousands upon thousands of people died. These floating platforms were being attacked. The repulsors were giving out. People were falling to their deaths. Some of them were turning over. There were explosions. There were strafing runs, bombing runs towards the end. Not to mention all of the people that got caught up in the confusion and were either trampled on or killed by the Nihil on the ground. I mean, this was cataclysmic for the Republic. Like, probably one of the worst. if not the worst event we've seen as far as innocent lives lost in all of Star Wars.
Well, Alderaan.
Well, yeah, I mean, but
That's
like
millions of people
we
died in an
didn't, but we
instant.
didn't see it
Right.
as intimately. You know, like sure, the planet blows up. That takes the cake. But like with this, there were a few moments where they described like people falling to their deaths and
Yeah,
you know,
it was
getting
more
killed.
intense because of the way it was described and like, and like Andrew said, like it felt more at home for some reason. Like Alderaan, it's a really intense moment in Star Wars because a whole planet blows up, but it's not as relatable because our planet hasn't blown up. You know what I mean? So like with this, it felt very, very relatable in the sense of like, oh, like attack on an event when a lot of people are there minding their own business, having fun with their family, because they go through that. Like, all these families are here, like they're eating this or they're at the zoo part of it,
and that was
like,
one of the things they definitely did well is they pull on your heartstrings because I mean they're like they have little moments where there's kids with their parents in line to get certain foods and they're going, you know, they talk about people at the zoo area and like they do a good job of humanizing this massive crowd of people rather than just stating in a sentence and 1,000 people died. You know, it's like no, they paint this really great picture like you just said, Drew, of these are normal people. Sure, they might be on the more wealthy side because they can afford to actually go to the event, but
true.
At the end of the day, this is also a melting pot of so many places across the galaxy.
Yeah,
you know, including the Togrutas who are also there.
Well, and like I think another thing that really did it for me is when the Chancellor's son was missing.
Yeah. Which I liked him. I liked him a lot as a character.
Yeah. But for me, it just seemed like, okay, so now there's a missing child who's very important. So there's like this other side story. And I think they really did that well.
Yeah.
When they sent the Jedi to go find him before the event happened. And then the event happened and you're like, oh, crap. What are they... like,
yeah.
This part of the story, it's so good. And it does trump the parts of the story that are confusing. And in hindsight, as we're breaking it down, it gets less and less confusing. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. And one of the things that was really good is that in every scenario where a Jedi, for example, Bell, so at one point they definitely sink the Innovator. So the Innovator is in the atmosphere. It's this huge ship that we mentioned, the scientific vessel. It's like the pride and joy of the fair. And then they sink it, and it's falling into the water. This massive, like almost ocean-sized lake below.
Was it parked above an ocean because the Chancellor's son and then like boyfriend like fling, like they went into it like to where it was. So it wasn't
I'm pretty. I thought it was just hovering above the water.
I think it was just above the water, but it was still accessible from the ground.
Oh yeah. I mean, they had observation decks and places where you could go in and see it.
There's ways to go visit it because that was like
because it was its own exhibit.
Yeah, that was this whole thing was like, let's go see it, and so there is a ways.
But like, why would you have it over the water? Like
they took zip lines over the water up there. You know?
I don't know. It just seems like if something were to go wrong, like an engine were to go on an accident and it were to like fall, like you'd rather have it fall on the ground than in the water.
Fell, it would probably float to a certain extent.
True.
But the problem with this situation is they
are attacking it and
they strafed it multiple times. Yeah. So like it falls into the water, and then in every situation, because like in this one, Bell's in there saving people in the wreckage of the ship while he's trying to find the Chancellor's son. And the son, his little fling, was also the son of the mayor of Valo.
Yes.
So like at every point, every time a Jedi saves someone, they give you they humanize the victims just enough, where you're like, I really hope this like seemingly good person doesn't die. And then you realize, oh my gosh, this is happening on a scale in the thousands, and it's just more impactful that way. So I think they did a really good job of that, and I think that they did a really good job of like portraying the Jedi as what they should be, as keepers of the peace and as a light, in these darkest moments, as people, those who are selflessly just giving themselves to the betterment of these situations, whether they die or not. And I think they genuinely conveyed that really well in all of these little rescue scenes. So, yeah. So, anyways, uh, let's see. Ty and Elzar form a force dyad, allows them to tame dragon-like beasts and hamper the Nihil's efforts in the sky. The Elzar is forced to touch on the dark side at one critical point in the battle. Dyro records the events and broadcasts it live to the galaxy. After fleeing Valo, when forces from outside respond to Dyro's beacon, Tempest runners Lorna D and Pan Ada organize a revolt against Ro, but Lorna double crosses Ada and leaves him for dead. So this whole thing ends, and then there's like a little bit more of the story. But honestly, there's so much that happens in the attack on Valo for us to even be able to cover.
Well, I think the main thing that we should probably talk about is Stellan trying to keep Lena So and the Togruta,
the Regasa.
her safe, because that's that's where he was with them the whole time, and how he kind of like made a force bubble so that the gas wouldn't get to him, and he's like, they're trying to get to the prototype of a walker.
Yeah,
which is it? Did you picture it as kind of like the ones from the Clone Wars, like the low ground ones, or were you thinking like
no, it was higher. It looked high.
Like,
it seemed higher.
Okay, because I was like, I didn't really think that the AT type walkers were a thing until the Empire, but like, I was thinking more of like the more towards the lower ground, like we see with like Rex has like in.
Well, they mentioned there were like sets of stairs to get up to it.
Yeah.
So, but I will tell you, Stellan really became one of my favorite characters really quickly once things started happening, to the point where he might be my favorite character from this book.
Ooh.
He might. If not, he's 100% in the top 3.
Well, he is the main character, so like he gets a lot more time.
But like the stuff he was doing with the Force and his tenacity and unwillingness to give up in defending the Chancellor and the Regasa, like he proved himself like 10 times over easily. Like by the end of it, obviously his last like big confrontation is he has to fight Lorna D, who she begins to best him, but it's also because like he's basically beaten to a pulp at this point. Like he's gone through so much, he's exhausted, he's used the Force, he's like maxed out his limits, he's been in different fights, and then of course the whole thing ends where Pan Ada authorizes a bombing raid, which was supposed to be like the last big thing in the attack, while Lorna D's on the ground still. So that obviously causes some tension in their relationship. So, but anyways, and kills a lot of the Nihil in the process, on the ground. But
I really liked, I forget the name, the lead to Gruta,
the captain, the guard captain.
Guy?
Yeah, he was cool. He was really cool.
I really liked him. Like, I don't know. I thought it'd be cool to see him and Stellan in that scene, just like live action, just fighting. And then we had the cats fighting.
Yeah, dude.
We finally saw them in action, just tearing people apart and
I love that. Chancellor So's space tigers.
Yeah, those are cool.
I love those.
But I guess I probably should have known this, but I didn't realize that the Togruta's species has like sonar capabilities with their heads.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't know that, and so I thought that was cool that they were kind of using that. They couldn't see, but they could sense when things were coming, which, force sensitive Togrutas, that's like double double dip in there. They have
Hey, you know,
their. So, did you guys think that Lena So died at the end, like of the attack?
I was really worried that she actually did
I thought she did. The way they.
because Stellan is like holding her
Yeah.
and is bawling. Like they made it a point to emphasize the fact that he was like
Nonstop crying.
ugly crying, holding her after all of that. Like the bombs had hit and they had been flung all over the place, and he finds her, and like I was worried. I was really
Well,
worried.
and then right after that, you get like the Nine Hill celebration thing. They say she's dead,
yeah,
and then they find out.
yeah, the Night Hill are like partying because the raid, quote, went successfully. But
Yeah, I thought she was dead. I thought, like, I didn't expect that, because then I was like, where do they go from here? Because this was their plan. Because they said
Yep, that was the Nine Hills
Martian Row
plan.
was like, we are going to kill Lena So, like, kill the Chancellor, and they were all chanting it and stuff. So seeing that happen, I was like, that's it. And like the fact that he was sobbing so much, I thought was because he knew that she was dead. Because obviously he could even sense the force
sense it,
that she
yeah,
was
yeah,
dead.
yeah.
So like, I don't know. I guess he was just fearing for her
Bruh, I don't know.
life the most. But
I mean, it was a long day for him. I probably would have cried after everything that I
True, that was a lot.
he went through.
I think we didn't touch on the Night Hill stuff as much, but like the balance between the Eye or Martian Row and Pan was like very intense throughout this book.
Yeah, I mean, because Pan, especially after the ending of the last book, and almost losing an entire Tempest. I mean, they essentially kind of did, but Pan's like
Doesn't trust the
he's-
Eye. He doesn't really
he's
care.
the classic. Let's go out and do something to make a name of ourselves instead of playing the long game type character, and that's where the tension is. He's like, we shouldn't be waiting here. We should be attacking the Republic. We should be doing more stuff. We should be out there like stealing stuff and taking money. And I'm tired of Martian Rowe having all these secrets and being in a ship by himself all the time and not telling us anything. And like the Eye isn't supposed to make all the decisions. He was just the deciding vote. And like basically he has a problem where things are going, because Martian Rowe the whole time is basically assuming the leadership of the entire Nihil himself little by little throughout this whole book.
Yeah.
And obviously he has a really terrifying plan that we're seeing is pretty effective as the pieces of it fall together. But you're right, Drew, there's a lot of tension between him and Pan-Ada.
And which is why I think Pan-Ada made a lot of mistakes too throughout this. And then you'll find out towards the end of the book it's not really good for him. But like I think he made a lot of quick judgments throughout the raid to try to not necessarily get done faster, but he didn't care who was in his way, including his own people.
Right. Well, when they get back, remember he has a confrontation with Martian Rowe, and Rowe just short of kills him.
Yes.
Like
and
straight
would have
up,
killed him, but Lorna D
saved him.
For a little bit.
Well,
they're in love a little bit. They were like, didn't they kiss or something?
No, so
she was 100% playing him.
she did it on purpose. She was not in love with him.
Yeah.
Because he ends up dying.
Yeah.
He doesn't die.
Yes, he does.
He escapes.
But he's poisoned, and the medicine that she gave him to save his life was only working for a little bit amount of time, and then I'm pretty sure it ends up that he actually dies.
No, because they go and attack the shipyards again, and he's in that ship, and he has his secret escape pod.
Yeah, but he's having a heart attack at the same time.
Oh yeah, okay, but we don't see him actually die.
Oh, true, but I
He's
think
gonna show up in the next book.
We don't
True,
technically see him die.
I guess,
it's
but
heavily implied.
it's implied though. I thought it was implied.
okay, if he was gonna die, they would actually say that he died.
True, it is Star
He
Wars.
That's true.
he escaped. Like that's because it says he escaped and nobody knew that he escaped. So people are gonna think he died in the next book, and he's gonna be doing something on the side,
Being an
Mm.
idiot.
and so there's gonna be all those flashbacks.
So you
flashes
think
to
he's
his
gonna
story.
find a different antidote then to his thing?
I think he's fine. I think the antidote did work.
No, but it literally said that it didn't though.
It said it only bought him time.
It bought him
Like-
time,
like
but
his
it was
body was
already
shutting
failing.
down.
Why he
Yeah.
he realized it was already failing. And that's why he went to the
I thought there was
escape
something-
pod to leave.
I don't know. I thought there was something else that happened that was causing that.
So we're alluding to a lot of things. This is a good moment to kind of set the stage. There is a good chunk of story that happens after, because I thought the whole attack on Valo was going to be the end of the book. Like, oh, this is the main thing. But then what ends up happening is Pan Eta is left for dead, and he decides to defy Marcion by basically attacking the same shipyards. He's like, the Republic is weak.
Mhm. He wanted to move quick and
Yeah,
He wanted to. There's two different options,
right.
and so he wanted to do the shipyards or the back to fields.
Right, the back
Yeah.
to fields. And so there's this plan being hatched by Stellan and some of the other Jedi where they're basically going to let information leak out that they're going to be fortifying the back to fields, supposedly and seemingly leaving the shipyards kind of wide open, when really they're anticipating that they're going to attack there. And they do, and they fall right into that trap.
And we should mention this because was it the news lady finds their secret
feed.
communication channel,
Yep.
Mhm.
and so they intercept. Were they able to continually listen, like so they're always listening, or was it just one message that they intercepted?
I wasn't sure.
It did
but
imply that she like legit tapped into it.
Yeah, so the Republic.
But
No.
then when they left the system, I don't know how long range that would. It seemed like it was more of a short range thing rather than a galaxy wide thing.
Right.
So she might have lost that ability once she left. But then it is interesting. There's a Nihil that they have taken. They've taken capture, and they have this really dark plan. Stellan has this really dark plan where they let him go, and to really sell the point, Elzar like low-key quote goes to the dark side again. And I'm not joking. I thought, oh my gosh, we're seeing him snap. Like he actually, it fooled me in this moment. But he's like throwing people around with the Force, and is like about
including
to choke.
his own master, his new master or whatever.
Yeah. And he's like choking, he's like force choking this Nihil out, and he lets him go. The guy gets away and ends up taking the girl, the scientist girl, who Ty Yorick was escorting hostage on the ship, and they let him get away and take the message back to the Nihil. Basically, they let him go back so they can follow him and learn the location
Oh, the Nihil.
of the base, because Indira and Bell are hiding out on the ship so that they can hit a beacon when they get. It's actually really smart.
Well,
basically-
and where were they hiding?
In a smuggler's compartment,
It reminded me of A New Hope.
the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah,
I know.
like right away.
It
It's like,
it was
I've seen this before.
yeah. It's interesting because like Stellan straight up is like, yeah, she honestly could be killed, but it's kind of a thing that we need to do to get the plan into action. I was like, oh wow, all right, well, I guess we have to make some hard decisions sometimes. Basically, they find the location of the base of the Nihil base, and when they attack the shipyards, a wing of vectors breaks away from that attack and jumps to the location of the base. And then there's actually one kind of final mini battle where Bell and Indira are on the ground at the Nihil base. They're trying to get in and infiltrate things and do recon, and they realize that the girl is like trying to basically sell the weapon idea to the Nihil, and then some more Jedi show up, and there's actually more of a battle, like a mini skirmish there. But the big thing that happens at the end of the book is that Bell senses Loden alive on the Gaze Electric, and like freaks out because he's like, "Oh my gosh, I thought this dude's been dead for almost a year, and I sense his presence," and he's going to try to find him. While he's doing that, an interesting thing is that Mari Santeca, the old lady that they have in the Gaze Electrics that gives out the paths, she like has been kind of communicating with Loden through the Force.
So that was her, because they never
Yes, it
explicitly
was.
say that.
Yeah.
I was thinking, was that her? But it didn't say.
In the book, when they like talk, it's like the same, like
It's her voice.
it's her voice.
Yeah.
So we should explain the one or two Loden scenes from the beginning of the book where he's being tortured and like injected with some drugs of some sort to see how it reacts, and his like eyes are like held open the whole time,
he
and like
can't
he can't
sleep.
Yeah.
And so
He's being tortured.
he's being tortured. So like, I don't know.
I'm
I thought it
impressed
was-
by the Nihil for keeping him alive that long.
Yeah.
Because the tortured methods that they do, I don't know how he's alive.
So
besides
I
the
really
Force.
enjoyed Marchion as a villain.
Correct.
I really enjoyed him as a villain,
Especially what he does against Pan.
He doesn't really do anything in the second book much. Like he's barely there.
but he's orchestrating.
No,
the whole
but
thing.
he's like
yeah, but I don't know.
and I think the way he handles the people in his group that start to defy him, the way he handles that, I think is very villainous, and I can respect it. If that's kind of weird to say.
Yeah.
But he's doing good villain things as a villain.
Yeah. So then Loden breaks. He gets out. He breaks free. He gets out.
Because he senses
Bell.
And
Yep.
so that it gives him strength
Through the Force.
through the Force. So he's
to
able
break
to
out.
mind trick one of
the Chandra fan doctors.
Yeah, and so to get him free. And then how does he get his saber back from Martian?
He gets it from him in a fight. They end up fighting, and briefly, and he gets it back from him in that fight. So the Gaze Electric is hovering above this battle at this point. And
One of my favorite things was, so while this battle is happening, because the Jedi are there, but also the Togruta military is arriving too at the same time.
Oh yes, that was cool.
And I don't know, I can't remember what it was worded, but it was like, the Jedi couldn't attack unless they were fired on first, but the Togruta didn't have that philosophy. Or something like that. And so the Togruta were there just killing everyone, because this is like, you attacked us too, like because they're the ones that stopped the fight on Valo. They are the ones that arrived.
They showed up, and they do
message.
end up deciding to join the Republic, or
at
at least to begin the talks of like fully becoming part of the Republic. But so Loden gets away. As he's running away, Marchion's like, all right, leveler, we're releasing the leveler. Like we've got to do this. Long story short, Loden ends up jumping out of a hatch off the side of the ship and is falling a massive distance, and he gets caught. Bell catches him using the Force, and they are reunited, which is really nice.
But that
really
point, I almost thought he didn't catch him. Like, it was a pretty intense scene.
It was close. Yeah, it was a really close moment. But Loden like joins the fight. He keeps fighting, and they go back into it. And there's this really sweet moment where it's like, we're Padawan and Master. We're back again, and like, yeah, we. and then things change. Because the leveler is released, and there's not a lot of detail as to what actually happens.
Yeah, I was super confused because it
But
almost
Bell
described it like it was like a
basically,
cloud or like a fog came across and then it
yeah,
was like running through the fog, but like I didn't really.
yeah. So basically, all the Jedi on the ground around it completely, like, temporarily lose their minds. Like Bell falls into this, like it describes like this, basically this paralyzing, like, mind melting of a dream in the force that he has, and he's like sinking into this dark place, and he doesn't know what's happening, and like basically it makes force users lose their minds and their connection to the force temporarily while it's around.
It kind of
uh
levels them to the floor.
Well, that's really
What it
what it's
does.
supposed to be. That's why it's
Yeah.
called that. That's literally to make a level playing field.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then the last thing that we see is Loden is actually, he dies. He gets turned to basically to ash or stone, at least,
So like,
and Bell is left there after after just reuniting with his master, basically in the fetal position, bawling,
so
curled up in a little ball.
so when Loden turned into rock slash dust, like, was this the effect of? Because like, uh, Bell, goes into this like crazy state of mind, but is the effects of the level are different on every person? So like, Loden didn't have that same experience as Bell in that moment, but his experience was he just turned to rock, and
We don't have an answer.
or did the level or the creature itself
We don't
like
know,
touch him and
because it is a creature. It is a thing that he released into the battlefield. But honest, we have no clue. Like, we have no information about what actually happened at the end of that. Like, how does the piece that Marcion like uses to control it, how does that work? What effects does that have versus the beast itself? Like, the other thing is, like, Marcion has like these visions of his father, or these voices of his father in his head, and his father's like, no, don't do it, like, this is a mistake, you don't need to do this.
Yeah, like
Like, it's super
the
ominous right before it happens. um
the whole time it's like his dad's yelling at him through the forest, kind of. It's really weird.
it's kind of, I feel like it's just kind of he's kind of a hallucination. But so that's the way the book ends, is we have this like massive cliffhanger where all of a sudden there's this thing, and it can do some serious damage to Jedi. We have no idea what it actually does,
Yeah.
though.
so my question then is the creatures that like Thrawn has, what are they called?
Ysilamari,
So they didn't have any of the similar.
they created a bubble that negated the Force,
But
but
they didn't go crazy or.
it just nullified it. Yeah.
Yeah, it just made
So
it
it's not.
so.
It wouldn't be like the same creature or. Like,
No.
No, I mean, this seemed like way more of like a ravenous, like a wolf or a tiger like thing, something that was like an apex predator more so than a lizard that you just put on your shoulder. But it could be like the canonized version of them on steroids. But the Ysilamari in the expanded universe were like, they were pretty docile creatures. They lived in trees, and then the bubble that they created, it just turned Jedi into normal people without them losing their minds. So, anyways.
so the next book's gonna be pretty crazy, probably.
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to that.
I'm really hoping that Elzar, Stellan, and Avar are able to join together
Yeah,
next
same.
book. Because I don't know. Because the first book was all about Avar. This book was all about Stellan. So maybe
Yeah,
next book will be more focused on Elzar.
And it is interesting, and it's worth noting that Lorna D is captured by the Jedi, and the very last sentence in this book. So this is the second book this year, and I'm kind of pissed that has left us on a like serious cliffhanger because the Thrawn Chiss, the most recent Chiss book, Ascendancy book,
Spoilers.
big cliffhanger there. Literally the last sentence. This one also, Stellan is like basically, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, and this is the first time he felt fear since he was a child. And you're like, what? Like, you can't end on that note. But you know,
But they can.
it was good. It was really good. So
But
yeah, Stellan touches Loden's cheek, and Loden turns to dust. Stellan remarks that it was the first time he felt fear since he was a child.
fun.
Yeah.
But there's one big thing in this book that we haven't talked about. It's the archivist. How he's just a blob of jelly in a suit.
In a containment suit.
And my favorite scene in the whole thing was when he's fighting those Nile and he's giving him a history lecture about all these
Yeah,
artifacts.
that was pretty
And
cool.
he's just fighting at the same time. And
Yeah.
I was like, this guy is so cool. And then the way he defeats one of the Nile is he gets a hole in his suit and he just like oozes out and consumes like a blob around him and kills him that way. I'm like, I want to see this
Yeah.
creature. Like,
I love that the archivist, because they kind of downplay him towards the beginning of the book. You're like, he's just there. You know, he's
Yeah.
just like the smart guy. But then he starts fighting, and you're like, oh, this guy's actually really, really cool because he can hold his own. I thought that was really cool. So there's our super fragmented and very much wide sweeping deep dive of the plot and some of the aspects of the Rising Storm. The second of the High Republic novels. Obviously, there's so much in this book that if we really went into detail, this could be like a 5 or 6 hour episode. It could. Like, there's
Yeah.
that much going on. So my advice to you is, I don't know why you would be this far in the episode if you haven't read it and you cared about the plot, because we just spoiled everything.
True, but
But I would suggest reading it, and then if you get the chance, maybe do something else for a little while and then reread it. Go back to it and reread it, because there's a lot of detail.
and if you
there
are listening and you weren't wanting to read it, hopefully we swayed you to start to read it.
Yeah.
Also, if anything, just read the last half.
if I can read a book, you can read a book, okay?
That's true.
That's fair.
That's true. So as always, just know that we'll be covering the third one as
Yeah.
well.
What was the name of the third one again?
Starfall.
Lost
Something like
Star.
that.
Lost
Fallen
Star.
Star.
Lost Star.
So is that supposed to be in reference to the Starlight Beacon? Like that's gonna
That
be
is one of the main prevailing theories. Yes.
that's gonna get destroyed, because by the time we get to Skywalker Saga, the Outer Rim is still unexplored and disconnected from everything. So
Yeah.
yeah.
obviously it didn't work.
Yeah.
So
I really want to see. I'd love to see a Jedi go to the dark side and somehow connect with the Sith, because like right now, the Sith exist. Like there are 2 Sith, or at least 1 Sith, doing something in the galaxy at this point in this story, but they're still in hiding. And so it will be really interesting to, there's this big, the big reveal that the Acolyte show is going to be taking place at the very end of the High Republic, and it's going to be supposedly the kind of, the beginnings of the emergence of the Sith as we know them. But there's just a lot of questions, a lot of really good questions that I hope they'll answer well. Like, what the heck is Martian's backstory? Why do they have the Leveler? What is the Leveler? What does it do? Is Stellan going to become... Not Stellan. Is Elzar going to become a Dark Jedi? Who knows? What is Yoda doing?
No one knows.
What the heck is Yoda
No one
doing?
knows.
He's hanging out with Yaddle.
Yeah.
But you know what? They could feel him in the Force sometimes.
DeVuetwist asked in the chat, who is the Bane line Sith at this time? No one knows. Even in Legends continuity, there's like kind of because there's Bane and then Xana. and then there are like maybe one or two mentioned with like barely any backstory, and then Tenebrous, and then Plagueis, and then Palpatine. So like we have no context of the Sith.
Because this book is 200 years before episode 1.
Correct.
So,
It has to be before Plagueis for sure.
well, yeah. So, how old would have Plagueis been when Palpatine killed him? Like, would Plagueis be like 100 years old when he dies? So, like,
No, I don't think he was that old.
just trying to think of like how many mathematically, there could only have been, 3, maybe 4, Sith before
Yeah.
Palpatine. So, or before Plagueis. So,
Yeah. I don't think the Muns had that long of a lifespan.
No, they weren't that old. I don't think he was that old.
I mean, I think they lived a pretty good amount of time. I think they lived longer than humans, but I don't think if Plagueis was alive, he would have been a young boy.
oh, okay.
So,
No, yeah, because like they don't in the Plagueis novel. I know it's not canon, but in the Plagueis novel, they didn't mention that he was like significantly older than Palpatine or anything like that. That I remember. It's been a long time since I read that book.
there's not a ton of like emphasis on their ages, anyways.
That's what
You
I
get
mean.
the idea that Plagueis he's older, but it's not like. And Plagueis was a 66-year-old
Yeah,
moon
or-
when he
or-
met Palpatine. Or,
Yeah, or it wasn't like Yoda, like it's not like
oh yeah,
I'm
yeah,
200
yeah.
years old when I train Palpatine. Like it's not like that. It's like
Right.
he's 40, or Palpatine's like 20s, maybe something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, there you go.
David
You
said
should
in the chat
definitely-
50.
No, it's a completely different conversation.
Oh wait, never mind.
Yeah.
I just saw a number.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, please go take the time to read or reread this book. It's definitely worth it. All of the things that all of the negativity from the beginning of the episode aside, this is a really good book.
No, yeah, for sure.
And there are a lot of really cool implications that it has on the greater Star Wars timeline. A lot of references to things we already know and are well established. So yeah, go check it out. But now, without further ado, it's time for voicemail time. You guys ready?
Voicemail time.
Oh, you're right. You're supposed to do that every time.
I was gonna hit my mouse was on the button, but now,
Wait,
Drew,
no, push it. You did that last week.
Nope.
And you
we're
didn't
in
cut.
voicemail time
no,
now.
come
All
on.
right. No, dude. Every time you do it, that's our new jingle, man. That's our new jingle. All right. So our first voicemail is from someone who has sent in voicemails before. It's been a little while, but she's back.
Ooh,
Good old Lucy. You guys ready?
Lucy
Yep.
Lou.
Here. Different. I think it's a different Lucy.
Just push play.
All right.
Hi everyone, it's Lucy back from my third voicemail. I took a podcast break over the summer, so I still have some Empire Radio episodes to catch up on.
Oh boy.
First, thank you for the invitation to join your Discord. I'm not allowed to be on Discord yet, but I'll keep sending in voicemails every once in a while. Also, I've been listening to the Thrawn audiobooks by Timothy Zahn, and I get why you like his character so much.
Yes.
I can't wait to hopefully see him in the Ahsoka show. Or you could do a podcast episode about the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy.
Yes.
Anyways, here's my suggestion. I would really like to see a podcast episode where you guys randomly pick Star Wars characters and then see who does the best voice impression of them.
No.
And here's one. Mr. your humble servant, Rocky Day.
Ooh.
And now that people are coming to chase me with torches and pitchforks, I'll say goodbye and may the force be with you.
Okay. First of all, that was actually really good.
That was really good.
Yeah.
That was that was really good. Secondly, I don't think that episode is gonna happen.
Nope. Sorry.
Because you'll get to the point from over the summer that you'll realize very quickly why that's the case. I'll just leave it at that, and you can listen to the episodes. You'll hit that point eventually, and you'll understand. While that probably won't be the case, but that was a very good idea. Thank you, Lucy.
But it is a possibility for you, the listeners, to keep sending voicemails of other characters in Star Wars, and we can just fill a
100%, yeah.
whole episode of just you guys talking as Star Wars characters.
Yeah. I'm reading the second book. I picked up 2 books over the weekend. The second book of the Bounty Hunter, the War of the Bounty Hunters trilogy from the Expanding Universe. Drew, you still need to read that because Boba Fett's the main character. And I also picked up the book that I mentioned earlier, Dawn of the Jedi Into the Void. And in the second Bounty Hunter Wars book, and in the first one, but this one too, Dengar's a character. And I read all of his lines in Dengar's voice from the voicemails now. So
That's cool.
just go ahead and give us more characters to read books in. That would be great.
But Lucy, so for those who don't know, Lucy was the first person to send us a voicemail.
Yep.
All the way back in February.
Yep.
Dun, dun, dun.
And she started we haven't missed a week yet where we haven't had at least one voicemail. So she started us off on this path. And I did, she sent in her second one, and I personally invited her to join Discord. So that's what she was referencing to. But
yeah. And it's okay. If you can't be on Discord, totally fine. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sending in the voicemails. It's a great way to stay connected, and we seriously appreciate it.
You got a lot of episodes over the summer.
Yeah.
Bad Batch plus our normal week. So
yeah, we doubled up for like 3 months. So best of luck to you as you binge all of those, and hopefully they're all very entertaining for you.
Yeah.
All right, next voicemail, and the last one we have is from Brandon. Let's check it out.
Hey guys, it's Brandon from the Orlando, Florida area. I have a question about Thrawn, because the Thrawn novels are my favorite Star Wars, more than any of the movies or TV shows.
Hey.
And I really like that Timothy Zahn has made him an anti-hero more than just an outright villain.
Yeah.
I know they kind of went back on that a little bit in Rebels, but I think that they should make him anti-hero instead of just a villain in the new wave of TV shows. They seem to be gearing up to make him more of like the Thanos overarching villain, but I think it would be far more interesting if he was an anti-hero. Maybe Ahsoka and the other heroes fought him for a little bit, but then realized they needed to team up to fight like the Grisks in the unknown regions.
Yeah.
I think that would be different than anything we've seen in Star Wars so far, and it would be very interesting. And considering that Saw Gerrera is the only anti-hero in Star Wars, and he's still a rebel, give us another one. Let Thrawn be an Imperial anti-hero. I think it would be awesome.
Ooh.
So let me know what you guys think. Thanks.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you. But
okay,
yes,
really quickly,
I'm down for that.
Really quickly, going back to what Lucy said, I want to cover the Chiss Ascendancy trilogy.
I'm down.
Well, we have to get Jeremiah to read them.
That's why I said I'm
Isn't
down. I'm just
there-
letting
Isn't there 6
No.
Thrawn
no,
books?
no.
No, I know there's 2 trilogies though, right?
Correct.
So there's 6 books.
But there's only 5. We haven't gotten through the Chiss Ascendancy trilogy yet.
But you can
a
just
lot of
read the
reading.
Chiss. No,
Jeremiah,
no.
They're so good though.
But can't
Okay,
you
but
just
it's-
read the Chiss Ascendancy because it's prequel?
I mean, you can.
Okay, if I'm gonna dive into the Thrawn books, I'm gonna do all 6. I'm not gonna just do the minimum.
All right.
But like, that's a lot of reading, dude.
Do it for Lucy and Brandon now, who clearly is a Thrawn fan. Anyways,
And
Brandon, to
all
answer
of
your
us.
question- yeah, to answer your question, yes, 1000%. That's what I love about Thrawn. That's exactly what I love about Thrawn, and it's the same thing I loved about Thanos, but more so Thrawn than Thanos, is that he's a bad guy, but also he's not a bad guy. Like he does a lot of things for the Ascendancy. He does a lot of things selflessly for other people. Obviously, he has a soft spot for Cherry, and some of the other characters in the Ascendancy novels. And
I haven't read any of those yet either.
well, Drew, you need to do that.
I plan to.
Here's what I would say: go ahead and buy them. And then when your child is asleep for those 2 hours a night, in those 2 hour intervals, just read.
No, I plan.
He's gonna be sleeping in the.
Oh, well, while you're rocking him to sleep again, read those books.
The thing is, I already have them on audiobook, so I just need to go pick them up, and I need to finish, or I just finished the third one, so I haven't started the Ascendancy. So that was my plan. I have 6 weeks off when he's sleeping, and I have some energy. I was planning on
Do it.
reading, or maybe I'll just listen to stay awake while I'm holding him, kind of
Yeah.
thing. But
They're
yes,
really good.
I do plan on trying to binge those before the next one comes out in November.
Yeah. Thrawn has always been that character that he's never fully bad, and he does align himself with the Empire, which is really bad at its core, and he does play more of a villain in Rebels. He definitely played more of a villain in Rebels, but at the end of the day, his intentions are such that I think him teaming up with Ahsoka in that series and Sabine is not far fetched.
It's not,
At
but my only worry about that is maybe they won't do it because Dave Filoni is doing it, and he also did do Rebels, and so
Nah,
maybe Dave.
Thrawn's too established now.
That's true.
He wasn't as established as he is now when he did Rebels. And
There is a huge cult following for Thrawn now too.
But like he needed to play that part in Rebels, but also he seemed more evil because we were viewing it from his standpoint. He didn't have the full context of what the Empire actually was.
True.
And so to him, I mean, it was a rebel uprising. Like, so again, this is a whole, I could talk about Thrawn all night, so I'm going to avoid doing that. But to answer your question, Brandon, yes, I'm 100% down for that. I hope that that's the case. We've talked about this briefly before, but I hope that the Grisk are going to become like a greater enemy, and we're gonna actually see them. Obviously, they're setting that up to a certain extent in the Thrawn books. So, yeah,
And maybe Jeremiah will read them.
we'll work on him, little by little. Little by little, we'll get him to.
I mean, I don't want to flex too hard, but before this podcast, he never read a Star Wars book, so we got him to read 2 already.
And now we've
so.
got 2. Yeah.
I think we could do it, Andrew. We just
So
got to
basically,
team up.
what you're saying is it's gonna take about 6 years for me to read the
No.
books.
I think, especially with not the Ascendancy books, but with the first 3 Thrawn books, I don't know if you're gonna want to put them down. Like for me, I never wanted to put them down. Like they were that good.
It's hard
also-
for me to read for extended periods of time. Like I could only read like 1 or 2 chapters at a time in these books, and I had to like walk around and do something and then go back. Like I can't sit and read.
Oh,
Sorry.
well, maybe this is a good time to break into audiobooks.
True.
Just like sit on your couch and listen to it.
Yeah.
Get comfy.
Go on
get a
Facebook.
cup of hot cocoa.
Go on
get a blanket.
Discord. Just have it playing in the background.
Yeah.
Your surround
Yeah.
sound, you can just have it playing.
Ooh. There's always a free trial of Audible waiting for you if you haven't done it
True.
already.
30 days.
That's literally what I did for The Rising Storm.
And I do that with almost every book. I just make a new email.
Don't say
Okay.
it. Empire Radio
Just-
does not support.
Just kidding. I used to do that. I don't do that anymore.
Oh boy.
I spend
Don't
money.
do that. But you know what you should do? You should definitely go to the description of the audio version of the podcast if that's what you're listening to. There's a link, links.co, 2 I's, links.co/Empire Radio. If you click on that, it is a landing page that has all of our social media information. It also has a way for you to join our Discord. There's a link you have to click to join. The link is there, and the link is also there to leave a voicemail. So if you have a question for us, you want to say hey, you want to tell us we're doing a great job, or you have some constructive criticism that's family friendly in its delivery, we'll listen to it on air. Or if you want to ask us a question or something, you don't want your voice on air, we'll still listen to it ahead of time and answer your question. We've done that before, and we're totally fine with doing that. So the link to leave us a voicemail is there if you want to do that. The link to join the Discord that we have mentioned many times in this episode is there. You should totally do that and join the greater Empire Radio Star Wars community. It's, as some people say, a hoot and a half. Who says that? I don't know. But I just did. So there's one person. And there are links also to our Instagram, our Facebook, our YouTube, where we do upload the video versions of these podcasts after every episode on Tuesdays. and the link to our Twitch, twitch.tv/Empire Radio, where you can actually catch the live streams of these episodes every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. So if you've heard us mention the Twitch chat before, that is because as we're recording this, there are literally people watching and interacting with us through Twitch. So if you have done that before, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. Make sure you follow us on Twitch. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. It does actually help. So yeah, join the community. There's many ways to do that. And that link for the landing page can also be found in our Instagram bio and in the About Us section on twitch.tv/Empire Radio. So there you have it. Anything else, boys?
Nope.
Nope.
All right. Well, everyone, you have been listening to another Wizard episode of the Empire Radio Podcast. I'm Andrew.
I'm Jeremiah.
I'm Drew.
And may the Force be with you.
Always.